Well, Florida has long been told that the future of energy is solar. But what happens when solar panels are broken, damaged, or just at the end of their useful life? The answer is actually more arbitrary than you might think. Here to tell us more is Nathan Arbitman. He's the Chief Commercial Officer for OnePlanet Solar Recycling. Nathan, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Ann. It's my pleasure.
So, a lot of people maybe don't think about the afterlife of solar panels. But in fact, it is a kind of a huge issue. There is what some people in this industry have described as a solar waste tsunami that is coming. Um, Tell us a little bit about what the problem is, and about the life of a solar panel.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, again, thanks for having me here. I'm excited to share more about my company and the problem that we're trying to solve, which you've just described. So yeah, I mean, solar energy is it's still one of the cheapest and fastest way to get new electrical capacity on the grid. But as you said, people don't really think about what happens at the end of the life of those solar panels. Solar panels can reach the end of their life in multiple ways. It can happen, yeah, maybe the roof that they were installed on is it has reached the end of its life, and the panels need to come down. Maybe the solar asset owner says, "Oh, you know what? These panels are quite old. I'd just like to install some new panels in order to get more electricity out of my system and generate some more revenue for the from the asset." But at the end of their life, the solar panels need to be managed responsibly, and that's the problem that we're trying to solve.
So they need to be managed responsibly, but currently there are very few laws in place nationally and in this state governing the outcomes. Um, there have been some efforts at making rules on the federal level with the Environmental Protection Agency, some discussions at the state level with the Department of Environmental Protection. Right now, what is one required to do with a solar panel if they're taking it off their roof?
Yeah, that really depends on the state in which the solar asset is located. There's a real patchwork of regulations. And as you said, the majority of states don't actually require that solar panels be recycled. And so we find today about 50% of solar panels being recycled, and the other 50%, unfortunately, are going to landfills. And at One Planet Solar Recycling, we see that as a major missed opportunity, in addition to of course, the environmental impacts of that choice.
And so, what are the environmental impacts of that choice? What are the contents of a solar panel? What happens to the contents if they're not recycled?
So solar panels do contain some heavy metals. So depending on the technology that's used in the solar panels, they can contain metals like cadmium, tellurium, which, if not managed properly, could potentially leach into groundwater. There's also lead is contained in a number of older solar panels. At One Planet, we're primarily focused on reclaiming the valuable critical materials that are in those solar panels that reach the end of their life. And those are materials like silicon, copper, silver, aluminum, even the glass and some plastics. And so what we do is find a new life for those materials and put those materials back into various value chains across the country.
And so, we think very often about rooftop solar. That's what we see primarily in our daily lives. But of course, as we're seeing on our video screen now, there are these large scale solar farms that are increasingly being built all around our state, all around the country. And so, that is creating a much larger waste stream than just rooftop solar. What are the people who create those solar farms required to do in terms of making a plan for their eventual disposal?
Yeah, that's typically governed at the very local level, and so the um, they're often required by municipalities to have so-called decommissioning plans that explain exactly what they're required to do. Those requirements are going to vary from town to town, but increasingly we're seeing that those municipalities, the citizens who live in the town, they want to know what's going to happen to these solar panels in 20 to 30 years from now, when this asset is retired.
And so, in places like Florida, where there are no regulations governing that, a local government could ask for a plan, like, "Hey, what's your plan?" But there is nothing that could allow them to mandate anything specific, or the state to mandate anything specific, other than sort of a handshake agreement. There's not any regulatory teeth.
That's true, although at the end of the day, it is oftentimes it's up to the municipality of whether to approve the permits, and so if the localities aren't satisfied with the plan, they don't need to approve the project, but we rarely see instances, especially in states without regulations like Florida, such, projects being denied for that reason.
And the states that really do have some regulations on this. Before the program, you and I talked about Hawaii, but Washington State, North Carolina, New York, California, and so in a place like Florida that doesn't have a regulation, we're often told like this is how you should dispose of a battery, for instance, in a way that's responsible, not just throw it in the trash, which could go into the landfill. But right now, without those regulations, these panels really can go into a regular landfill, not a special hazardous waste landfill that's lined and designed to protect leaching into the environment. It really could go into just a regular dump.
It could potentially. I mean, I think technically the asset owner is responsible for determining whether this solar panel is considered hazardous waste or not, and they would need to test it, et cetera, before disposing it. But in practice, yeah, you never know where it's going to end up. I mean, today it does cost a little bit more to recycle a solar panel than it does to landfill them. But what we're seeing with, especially large asset owners, um, companies that are maybe in the public eye or that are, owned by shareholders and that care about their brand and their reputation, more and more they are they are making the responsible choice to recycle the panels.
So we mentioned that One Planet Solar has created this new facility in Green Cove. Talk to us a little bit about the process there, because there was a startup facility that began, I guess, last year, and now there's this big expansion planned, some $90 million. Where is the facility? What's it going to look like? How big is it going to be? When's it coming online? Tell us some of the details.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have been operating for about a year and a half, a what we call a pilot facility, in Green Cove Springs that can handle roughly 500,000 panels, 450,000 panels or so each year, which is a reasonable amount. But as you said, we're very excited about our expansion plans, and we're well underway with those plans. We've identified a site that we're not disclosing exactly where it is. We're still in discussions with the landlord there, but we're planning to take over a site and have that new site up and running in 2027. That site will be able to handle over 2 million solar panels per year. Initially, it will employ 75 people, and then in the next phase of expansion, we'll add another 50 people for 125 people total, 125 jobs. And yeah, we're very excited about helping to establish Florida as a leader in this emerging industry. I mean, and we chose this area for a very kind of strategic reason. And that is, there's a ton of there's I think 50 million, we estimate about 50 million solar panels in Florida alone that will be reaching the end of their life over the next 10 years. Florida within say within in the Jacksonville area, we're within say 500 miles of three of the other four largest states, and including Florida, that are where there's the largest installed base of solar panels nationwide. So, North Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia all have a lot of installed solar, and we think there's a tremendous potential for our facility and for Florida more broadly to lead in this area.
And Green Cove Springs in particular, I mean, obviously, regionally, you can explain why you're making that choice. Is there a reason Green Cove was the ideal location?
I think it's really for the same reasons that I mentioned earlier, around the same reasons why we're planning to have the next facility be located in the greater Jacksonville area as well.
Yeah. And so this is, as you said, a $90 million expansion. Are there incentives? is Green Cove, is the county, Clay County offering anything to the company to make this happen?
We're in discussions with Clay County and other various stakeholders at the state level to see what might be available. There's nothing's firm yet. We did win a $14.5 million tax credit from the federal government, so that's an investment tax credit that will support the project.
Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about is the natural lifespan of a solar panel or a solar field, but storm damage is a big part of the story of solar panels, whether it is, hurricanes or hailstorms. Can you talk about how that presents for the industry? For people who don't know, how vulnerable are they? How much damage is caused when we have an Ian or an Irma go through?
Yeah, it's a good question. We actually see less damage than you might expect during hurricanes. I think that the industry talks a lot and is concerned a lot, much more about hail, which is a problem more in the Midwest, Southwest of the country, and so hail is a major issue, and that's something that has prevented a number of projects from being able to get insurance, for example,
Oh,
and the financing that they need. But yeah, fortunately, we don't see nearly as much damage as you might expect from hurricane damage.
there is, I would guess, though, just that there is a storm impact in Florida when we're talking about whole communities that are torn up or losing their roofs. I mean, there must be uh, some impact there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And when such events occur, we're hopeful that those panels will find their way to a responsible recycler.
Yeah. And so I've heard this described as a first of its kind facility. Is that in Florida, in this region?
Globally, as far as we've invested a lot of our resources on developing a highly specialized technology that's designed to kind of disassemble the solar panels as quickly as possible, segregate the valuable materials into different streams, and package them for sale to different end users. So that that technology differentiation, that investment that we've made in technology, is something that we're very excited to get going.
Is that mostly a physical process where you're disassembling something and kind of putting the component parts in different buckets, so to speak? Or is it a chemical process where you're trying to extract something, be it a heavy metal or something else? Is there a waste stream produced?
That's a great question. We believe we've assessed all the different types of ways that you could recycle a solar panel, and we've concluded that a mechanical process is the way to go. And so there are no chemicals that are used in our process. There are others who do that. We don't think it's the right way to go, both in terms of the economics as well as in terms of the pollution that such approaches can create.
What do you anticipate with the regulatory landscape, and will regulations ultimately benefit you if the state or the federal government says these have to be disposed of in a certain way?
Yeah, I mentioned that patchwork earlier. I think what's interesting is if you when you look at the map of the different variations on the types of regulations at state level that uh, govern solar panel disposal, that map was a lot emptier 5 to 10 years ago, and I think it will be a lot fuller 5 to 10 years from now. And I think that's something that as there are more rules that require solar panels to be handled responsibly, that's something that will not just benefit us, but could also potentially benefit the asset owners themselves by providing a bit more certainty in terms of the costs and implications of dealing with solar panels at the end of their life.
We know that there's been some pushback recently on clean energy initiatives. What are you forecasting for your own, the receiving end, if people are perhaps going to be getting fewer incentives to build solar?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think how we see that, Anne, is that you know, given that our feedstock, the solar panels that are coming to our facility, by and large, they're from solar projects that were installed 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And that market is what it is, and it's not affected by new regulations that or recent regulations that impact new solar capacity. So we're very bullish on the future.
Well, Nathan Arbitman, from One Planet Solar, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much for coming and tell us about the project.
My pleasure. Thanks.